What if I told you that everything you believed about the cold and survival in the North is a myth? The rugged seafarers of the past did not rely solely on huge, roaring bonfires. For many years, we have been led to believe that to survive in the ice, they had to constantly burn large quantities of firewood. But in the cold Scandinavian lands, high-quality wood has always been considered an incredibly valuable resource for shipbuilding. Therefore, the true strength of these people lay in their subtle understanding of the physics of materials and the hidden properties of nature. They developed unique methods of energy conservation that worked flawlessly, even under the most extreme conditions. The wise Northerners learned to use ordinary river stones and dense, hot ash to retain heat for long periods. The red-hot cobblestones slowly released their stored heat inside spacious homes for hours on end. This ingenious trick saved entire settlements from freezing during the harshest winter frosts. Watch the video to the end, and you'll learn how the Vikings turned a single bonfire into a system that worked even at night without a flame. I will reveal the best-kept secret of the Northern peoples, passed down through many generations. Most people today consider an extinguished fire to be a completely useless source of heat. However, the inhabitants of the harsh fjords saw incredible potential for heating in the gray ashes. They learned to use ordinary wood ash as a powerful insulating material. This unassuming powder became the main tool in the fight against the nighttime cold. After preparing the evening meal, a pile of glowing embers always remained in the center of the longhouse. Instead of letting them cool freely, the inhabitants carried out a special preservation process. The glowing pieces of wood were pushed into a tight pile in the deepest part of the central hearth. They were generously covered with a thick layer of cold ash that had accumulated during the day. The result was a neat gray mound with not a hint of open flame. The physics of this process relied on blocking the free flow of oxygen to the hot fuel. The dense ash shell prevented the wind from fanning the coals and accelerating their combustion. Inside the mound, the temperature remained consistently high for 10 hours or more. The wood entered a state of extremely slow smoldering without emitting thick, acrid smoke. This allowed the release of thermal energy to be spread out over the entire long winter night. The outer surface of the ash mound always remained only slightly warm to the touch. It did not burn people and did not pose a fire hazard in the wooden structure. At the same time, a stable zone of very comfortable temperature formed around the hearth. People slept in close proximity to this source of gentle, steady heat. The absence of bright flashes of flame also contributed to a peaceful and deep sleep. The skill of maintaining the fire was considered one of the most valuable skills in any settlement. Responsibility for this process often fell to the most experienced members of the community. A miscalculation could lead to the fuel burning out quickly and the entire house freezing overnight. A layer of ash that was too thick could completely extinguish the coals due to a severe lack of oxygen. It required an intuitive sense of the right balance to maintain ideal smoldering. The cooled ash was not discarded afterward but carefully collected for other household needs. It served as an excellent means of cleaning sooty cauldrons and household utensils. Some of the ash was used in soap making and the processing of various natural materials. In this way, waste from the fire was transformed into a valuable, reusable resource. In conditions of constant raw material shortages, such a waste-free approach was vital. The use of the ash thermos radically changed the perception of fire in the culture of the Northerners. The flame ceased to be merely an element that needed to be constantly fed with dry firewood. It became an obedient tool, capable of being put to sleep and awakened at will. This gave people a sense of absolute confidence and control over the harsh environment. The hidden heat became a reliable ally during the darkest winter months. Every night in the longhouse passed under the invisible protection of this thermal shield. This ancient technology proved its incredible effectiveness over many centuries. I'd love to hear your perspective. What do you think of this approach to conserving thermal energy? Share your thoughts in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel. Are you ready to learn the truth about the stones that replaced the sun for the Northerners? Scandinavian nature gifted the locals a unique mineral with remarkable heat-retaining properties. This stone is called steatite, or soapstone, and it became a true lifesaver for sailors. Thanks to its incredibly dense structure, soapstone could absorb a huge amount of energy from a fire. A heated piece of this mineral retained its high temperature several times longer than ordinary granite. Preparation of the stone heaters began while it was still light out, as the main fire was burning. Small blocks of steatite were carefully laid out around the edges of the blazing fire. The stones slowly absorbed the heat, gradually darkening in color. Their porous structure allowed them to store thermal energy without the risk of cracking due to temperature fluctuations. In the evening, these red-hot blocks were removed from the fire using long wooden tongs. Soapstone mining was an important craft industry in Scandinavian settlements. Experienced craftsmen searched for large veins of this mineral in sheer cliffs. The extracted boulders were sawed into neat rectangular blocks of uniform size. The smooth surface of steatite made it pleasant to the touch and comfortable to use. Every family strove to have a supply of such stones for the harsh winter months. The shape of the heating stones could vary greatly depending on their intended use. Some craftsmen carved flat slabs that were convenient to place under the lower back. Others made rounded balls that rolled easily inside a woolen cocoon. Soapstone was easy to work with, allowing craftsmen to create items of perfect proportions. Beautiful geometric patterns or protective symbols were often carved onto the surface of the stone. In large houses, soapstone blocks were used to heat specific work areas. Artisans placed the heated stones next to their tools to keep their fingers from freezing. Women placed jugs of water on the warm slabs to prevent the water from freezing. Stone radiators created localized pockets of warmth throughout the vast hall. This eliminated the need to light multiple open fires within a single room. Soapstone possessed another unique property that was highly valued in ancient times. It did not absorb smoke odors at all and did not emit harmful substances when heated. The air near such a heater always remained clean and fresh. This was critically important in the poorly ventilated conditions of tightly sealed winter dwellings. Respiratory health depended on the quality of the heat sources used. These stone heaters served as a reliable source of comfort away from the central hearth. The smooth mineral provided even heat without requiring constant supervision or the addition of kindling. The skill of finding and working with the right soapstone was highly valued among all craftsmen. I wonder, could you keep warm with a simple stone on long winter evenings? In the next chapter, you'll learn how earth from the marshes became a flameless fuel. What was found in old archives forever changes our understanding of northern life. It turns out that the endless cold marshes of Scandinavia concealed an inexhaustible source of slow heat. People learned to extract raw peat, which, after proper drying, turned into a unique fuel. Unlike ordinary wood, peat briquettes did not produce a high, bright flame. They provided a stable, even, and incredibly long-lasting smoldering fire inside the hearth. Peat smoke had a distinctive aroma that became an integral part of the atmosphere of a northern home. This smoke possessed mild antibacterial properties, purifying the air indoors. It also helped preserve the wooden roof structures by impregnating them with resinous substances. People grew accustomed to this smell and considered it a symbol of home comfort and safety. On long winter evenings, the scent of smoldering peat brought a sense of calm and security. Using peat allowed for significant savings of valuable timber used in construction and crafts. Wood was essential for building sturdy ships, houses, and making furniture. Burning good wood in the hearth was considered an unaffordable luxury for many poor families. Peatland solved this problem by providing a cheap and effective alternative to traditional firewood. The availability of peat made it the primary fuel source in treeless coastal regions. Managing a peat fire required special skill and an understanding of the combustion process. The blocks had to be stacked in a specific way, leaving small gaps for air to enter. If the peat was stacked too tightly, it could go out due to a lack of precious oxygen. Stacking them too loosely led to rapid burning and a waste of winter supplies. Experienced housewives knew how to regulate the temperature in the house simply by rearranging the peat briquettes. When combined with the ash thermos technique, peat delivered phenomenal results. Hidden under a thick layer of ash, a peat block could retain heat for several days. This was critically important during prolonged snowstorms, when leaving the house was impossible. People could calmly wait out the bad weather, knowing that their hearth would not go out. The bog soil literally saved entire settlements from freezing to death. The ash left over from burning peat was also put to good use. Rich in minerals, it was ideal for fertilizing the poor northern soils. In the spring, this reddish ash was generously spread over the fields before planting valuable crops. Thus, peat not only kept people warm in winter, but also helped grow crops in summer. It was a perfect example of the wise use of all available natural resources. The use of peat demonstrates humanity's incredible ability to adapt to harsh conditions. Harvesting the bog material took a long time, but it guaranteed warm nights for the entire settlement. Dense briquettes were stacked under shelters, forming huge energy reserves in case of blizzards. The heat from the peat warmed homes even when the strongest storms raged outside. If you were surprised by this unusual heating method, be sure to like this video.
Tight there. A little more to the left.
The secret, passed down from generation to generation, lies in the shape of the hearth itself. The inhabitants of the fjords never built small, round hearths in their huge, long houses. They used a special rectangular structure stretched along the entire central axis of the building. This fire trench was called a langeld, which literally means long hearth. This geometric shape allowed heat energy to be distributed as evenly as possible throughout the entire vast room. The length of such a hearth could reach several meters, occupying nearly a third of the hall's area. The langeld was lined with flat stones, which protected the wooden floor from accidental fire. The stone base of the hearth functioned as a giant radiator, accumulating heat during active burning. When the open flame died down, these heated slabs continued to release energy into the surrounding space. The massive foundation of the hearth remained warm throughout the long winter night. At night, the coals were evenly distributed along the entire length of the stone base for maximum coverage. They were then covered with a layer of ash, creating a long strip of preserved, safe heat. This line, glowing in the dark, served as a kind of landmark and a source of calm. Even heat rose from the stones, warming the air around the people sleeping on the benches. Cooling occurred incredibly slowly, thanks to the enormous mass of heated rock. The long hearth required a huge amount of stone for its proper and reliable construction. Special types of rock, resistant to constant sharp temperature fluctuations, were chosen for the foundation. River boulders were unsuitable, as they could burst from intense internal stress. Craftsmen preferred to use flat slate or granite quarried from deep, dry quarries. Careful selection of materials ensured the safety and durability of the home's primary heat source. Maintaining the langeld was a daily duty requiring attention and physical effort. Every morning, the hearth was cleared of excess ash, leaving just enough for the thermos. The stones were regularly inspected for dangerous cracks and replaced with new ones if necessary. The area around the fire pit was always kept perfectly tidy, with dry debris and shavings removed. The safety of the entire massive wooden structure depended on discipline in handling fire. Langeld was not merely an engineering structure, but also the sacred center of the entire community. Warriors, craftsmen, and skalds gathered around this long fire on long winter evenings. Its elongated shape allowed a large number of guests to be seated facing the source of living light. The warmth united people, creating an atmosphere of comfort, safety, and unbreakable brotherhood. The hearth served as a visible symbol of life, standing against the icy darkness of the harsh outside world. The engineering of the long fire pit demonstrates a deep understanding of the principles of radiant heat transfer. The even distribution of energy over a large area is always more effective than localized, intense heating. Managing the long hearth required the coordinated work of several experienced people at once. They constantly moved the coals along the stone trench to maintain a uniform temperature. Have you ever wondered why the shape and length of the hearth were so crucial? In the next chapter, we will examine how the walls of the structures themselves absorbed and radiated life-saving heat. Ordinary wooden planks could not provide reliable protection against the biting northern wind. Thin wood froze quickly, releasing precious heat into the icy void. Therefore, craftsmen developed a unique technique for creating double walls with a thick insulating layer. The outer perimeter of the dwelling was lined with thick rectangular blocks of dense turf and earth. This natural material acted like a giant sponge, absorbing and retaining thermal energy. The thickness of these earthen walls could reach over a meter in the harshest regions. Inside this earthen shell was a sturdy wooden frame made of thick logs. The air gap between the wood and the turf provided an additional layer of thermal protection. The earth reliably blocked icy drafts, making the interior completely airtight. The house became a giant thermos, insulated from the whims of the harsh surrounding nature. When the central hearth burned, the interior wooden panels slowly heated up from the radiation. They transferred this energy further, warming the thick layer of adjacent earthen turf. Turf has tremendous thermal capacity. It is capable of storing a vast amount of invisible heat. At night, when the flames died down, the heat exchange process reversed. The heated walls began to gently release the accumulated energy back into the living space. In winter, the outer layer of the turf wall was often covered with a thick crust of ice and snow. Surprisingly, this snowy shell made the house's insulation even more effective. Snow contains a lot of air and acts as an excellent natural barrier against strong winds. Inside, however, a meter beneath the earth and wood, a comfortable above-freezing temperature was maintained. The contrast between the icy outer crust and the cozy interior was simply striking. In summer, the thatched roofs and walls performed the exact opposite, yet no less important function. They protected the interior of the house from overheating under the direct rays of the hot sun. The earth retained a pleasant coolness, creating a comfortable microclimate even on the most stifling days. The green grass growing on the roof evaporated moisture, further cooling the building's surface. Thus, Viking architecture was perfectly balanced for any weather conditions. Repairing the turf walls was simple and did not require complex carpentry tools. Crumbling sections of earth were easily replaced with new, fresh blocks cut from the nearest meadow. The house literally blended into the landscape, becoming a natural extension of the harsh northern wilderness. From a distance, such structures resembled green or snow-covered hills, merging with the terrain. This ensured not only heat retention, but also excellent camouflage from enemies. The unique architecture allowed for the most efficient use of energy from even the smallest hearth. All the heat produced by the fire remained trapped inside the impenetrable earthen enclosure. This reduced the overall need to stockpile vast quantities of firewood for the winter. People could spend more time on crafts and rest rather than on the endless search for fuel. Turf proved to be the most reliable and accessible building material in the conditions of the North. The earthen thermos technology demonstrates the highest level of engineering ingenuity among ancient northern builders. They did not attempt to conquer nature, but rather skillfully utilized its physical laws to their advantage. The heavy earthen walls functioned autonomously, requiring no mechanisms or complex systems. The massive earthen shell saved thousands of lives during the most merciless climatic disasters. Every millimeter of this structure served a single great purpose: to preserve life-saving heat.
And bless our harvest.
The hidden truth that everyone keeps quiet about lies right beneath the sailors' sleeping platforms. The hearth in the very center of the house was not the only engineering solution for retaining heat. Shallow channels and pits were often dug beneath the wide wooden sleeping platforms. Large river boulders, previously heated in the main fire, were placed in these hidden recesses. The stones slowly released their heat upward, warming the sleeping platforms throughout the night. Preparing this sleeping system required some time before going to bed. In the evening, the inhabitants would retrieve the heaviest and hottest granite blocks from the Langeld. Using wooden poles, they carefully rolled them into the prepared earthen trenches beneath the benches. Then the stones were lightly covered with a layer of dry sand to avoid direct contact with the wood. The sand acted as a buffer, preventing the planks from rotting and evenly distributing the heat. This ingenious heating system turned an ordinary wooden bench into a real warm stove. The heated air slowly rose from the earthen channel, seeping through the cracks in the floorboards. The boards became pleasantly warm to the touch, warming the backs of people weary from the day's work. The heat from the stones lasted surprisingly long, ensuring a comfortable sleep until the coldest dawn. No external frost could penetrate this dense upward heat flow. The wood for the sleeping platforms was selected based on its thermal conductivity and resistance to drying out. Hardwoods such as oak heated up more slowly but maintained a comfortable temperature longer. Soft pine quickly became hot, but also cooled down just as quickly by the middle of the long night. The planks were carefully fitted together, leaving only microscopic gaps for heat to escape. The surface of the sleeping platform was covered with thick fabrics to create the coziest possible space. In the morning, the cooled stones were removed from the earthen pits and returned to the main hearth. The earthen trenches were cleared of spilled sand and dust, preparing them for the next evening. This daily ritual was an essential part of life for any organized northern family. The heavy physical labor of moving boulders was compensated by incredible comfort during sleep. People understood that their night's rest depended on the quality of the underground heating systems. Such hidden heating systems saved valuable space in the central part of the house. Instead of huddling around a fire, people could rest comfortably in their own places. The warmth came to them from below, enveloping their bodies in an invisible, warm, thick blanket. The architecture of the dwelling took on a multi-level character, with each level serving its own thermal function. The earth beneath their feet ceased to be merely a cold foundation, becoming an active element of the heating system. This technology allowed people to sleep in ideal conditions even when the temperature outside was well below freezing. Dense earthen channels reliably insulated the hot stones from the wooden structures of the house. The surface of the wide sleeping platform always remained completely dry and pleasantly warm to the touch. Did you know about the existence of such ingenious hidden underfloor heating systems? In the next chapter, we'll discuss the careful selection of wood that ensured the longest smoldering. Northern carpenters and lumberjacks were well versed in the hidden heat-generating properties of each tree. For nighttime heating and preservation in the ashes, they never used resinous pine or spruce. These softwoods produced too many sparks and burned through instantly, leaving only cold ash. True thermal value lay in dense hardwoods such as mighty oak or elm. It was their heavy wood that formed the strongest and most durable embers at the heart of the hearth. Harvesting oak firewood for the winter cold was considered a task of strategic national importance. Oak wood has the highest density, which ensures a long and incredibly hot burn. The process of drying hardwoods required special patience and strict adherence to ancient rules. Freshly cut oak contained too much moisture and smoked heavily when placed in the fire. The logs were stacked in huge, well-ventilated wood piles under wide wooden canopies for several years. Only after drying completely did the wood acquire its unique heat-retaining properties. A properly dried piece of oak rang like a solid metal bar when struck. The use of hardwood radically changed the way the huge central hearth was tended. The owners did not need to toss in armfuls of kindling every hour to maintain the desired temperature. It was enough to place 2 large oak logs in the fire at the very beginning of a long evening. They slowly gave off their heat, providing steady warmth without flare-ups or lulls. This saved a great deal of effort and allowed people to go about their crafts without constant distractions. In addition, hardwoods produced a minimal amount of acrid, resinous soot. The walls and ceiling of the house remained relatively clean, and the air did not irritate the eyes or throat. Pine firewood, on the other hand, quickly clogged the ventilation openings with sticky and dangerous tar. The clean burning of ash or beech was a sign of prosperity and a high standard of living. Housewives strictly monitored what kind of firewood the men brought into the house before bedtime. The hard coals left over from burning oak were often used in the complex craft of blacksmithing. They produced the extremely high temperatures necessary for forging durable weapons and agricultural tools. High-quality fuel was the foundation of the region's entire metallurgy and technological development. The same oak log could warm sleeping children at night and melt steel by day. Wood was a universal material upon which the entire civilization of the North was built. A strict selection of fuel ensured the optimal operation of the smoldering fire beneath a layer of ash. Soft firewood would have turned into useless dust, leaving no heat behind. Only heavy oak or sturdy elm could survive the long night inside the ash-gray mound. Properly harvesting the right wood ensured peace and warmth for the entire settlement. Knowledge of wood's properties was as vital a weapon as a sharpened battle axe. Traditional longhouses lacked the narrow stone chimneys or flues we are accustomed to. Smoke from the hearth rose straight up and accumulated under the high gabled wooden roof. This complex physical process was controlled by small ventilation openings in the gables. The smoke formed a dense thermal cushion beneath the ceiling, preventing cold air from sinking downward. This air layer acted as an additional layer of effective insulation for the vast interior. The secret lay in the stratification of air across different temperature zones within the high hall. The hottest smoke rose to the roof ridge, forming an impenetrable dark dome there. Below lay a layer of clean but very warm air, suitable for normal breathing. Closer to the floor, the temperature was lower, but still remained comfortable enough for living. This smoke cap retained infrared radiation, reflecting it back onto the earthen floor. The smoke not only served a thermal function, but also protected the house from biological decay. Thick soot settled on the wooden rafters, impregnating them with powerful antiseptic resins. This treatment prevented the wood from rotting and repelled numerous wood-boring beetles. Beams covered with a layer of terry residue became practically eternal and indestructible. The smoke preserved the roof from the inside, protecting the structure from moisture and natural decay. Keeping the smoke inside the building required strict discipline when moving about the house. Sudden movements or slamming doors could disrupt the layered structure of the warm air masses. Cold air from the street, rushing in, would drop the smoke curtain directly onto the people. Therefore, doors were made low, and a special protective vestibule was often built in front of them. The entrance to the dwelling resembled an airlock, preventing the disruption of the fragile internal microclimate. For additional insulation, the roof was often covered with a thick layer of straw or dry reeds. Combined with the internal smoke cushion, this created an impenetrable barrier against any frost. Even at extremely low outside temperatures, the heat from the hearth could not escape the building. The house functioned as a single living organism where every detail served the common cause of survival. Smoke, once the enemy of breathing, became an invisible protector against the approaching icy death. Experienced builders always took wind direction into account when positioning a long, massive house. Ventilation windows had to be placed so that the wind would not blow the smoke back inside. The correct orientation of the building relative to the cardinal directions ensured a natural, stable draft year-round. The wind blowing over the roof created an area of low pressure, gently drawing out excess soot. Nature itself helped people regulate the complex atmosphere inside the huge wooden hall. At night, when the open flame gave way to the smoldering ash mound, the amount of smoke dropped sharply. However, the hot gas cushion accumulated under the ceiling continued to perform its insulating function. It cooled very slowly, gradually sinking downward and warming the people sleeping below. By morning, the air was completely purified, preparing for a new cycle of kindling a large fire. This rhythmic process of renewing the atmosphere was inextricably linked to the Vikings' daily routine. Thus, smoke became the most important tool in the struggle for survival in the harsh north. It provided warmth, preserved wood, and served as an indicator that the entire hearth was functioning properly. The engineering solution of an air cushion under the roof is striking in its ingeniously simple logic. Smoke ceased to be merely a useless byproduct of the arduous process of wood burning. It became a reliable shield, protecting people from the merciless Arctic ice-cold sky. The settlements of the Northerners consisted of many separate buildings serving a wide variety of purposes. Moving fire between different structures required special care and very reliable tools. In winter, carrying an open flame was too dangerous due to strong and unpredictable winds. For this purpose, skilled craftsmen fashioned special, thick-walled vessels from local high-quality refractory clay. Inside such a sturdy pot, they placed the largest embers, covered with dry, fine river sand. The thick clay walls heated up slowly and began to radiate a soft, even warmth in all directions. The vessel could be carried absolutely safely to a craft workshop or used to heat the far corners of a long house. Artisans took these portable heat sources to their work areas to keep their frozen hands warm. This allowed them to continue their delicate work with leather or hardwood without interruption, even on the coldest days. The valuable heat from the red-hot clay was steady and did not require constantly adding dry firewood. Natural clay has excellent thermal mass and withstands prolonged contact with hot objects exceptionally well. The thick walls of the heavy jug reliably protected the coals from sudden gusts of wind while being carried across the open yard. The sand inside served a vital function as a shock absorber and an additional thermal buffer between the fire and the ceramic. This ingenious design completely eliminated the possibility of dangerous sparks accidentally falling onto a wooden floor or dry straw. The fire was securely contained within a sturdy and absolutely safe portable shell. During severe winter cold, such enclosed pots with hot coals could even be placed inside closed sleeping alcoves. High-quality clay never heated up to a temperature capable of accidentally igniting wooden walls or fabrics. The vessel emitted a very pleasant warmth, similar to that of a huge stone heated by the summer sun. This reliably protected small children and the elderly from hypothermia during sharp drops in nighttime temperatures. Ceramics gave people a sense of deep security and comfort in the most difficult everyday situations. The production of such durable, fire-resistant vessels required deep knowledge of ancient, high-quality ceramics. It was not enough to simply mix ordinary clay with river water and dry it in the open sun. Potters always added crushed quartz or shamat to the wet clay to increase the overall strength of the piece. These important additives prevented the material from cracking during constant intense heating and subsequent cooling. Thoroughly kneading the dense clay mixture took many hours of hard-to-meal labor. The firing of fully finished pots took place at extremely high temperatures in special enclosed earthen kilns. Only a vessel fired to the highest standard could withstand prolonged daily contact with red-hot coals. Proud artisans often stamped their personal marks on such items, guaranteeing their durability and reliability. The skilled work of an experienced potter was held in extremely high regard throughout the snow-covered northern lands. Families treasured fine household pottery just as much as expensive metal tools and weapons. Travelers and warriors also always took small, portable braziers with them on their dangerous winter expeditions. Inside this compact, sturdy vessel, one could preserve the spark of life during a severe snowstorm in open terrain. Upon arriving at a new location, a single preserved hot coal could be used to quickly stoke a large fire. This permanently eliminated the agonizing process of laboriously striking a fire with a flint using frozen, wet hands. The clay pot literally saved the lives of entire expeditions stranded in the icy wilderness without proper shelter. In the evening, the pots, which had cooled over the long day, were carefully returned to the central hearth to be refilled with coals. The pottery was gently cleaned of the spent gray ash, and the entire process was repeated from the very beginning every day. The vessels served faithfully for years, becoming coated on the outside with a layer of noble black soot and becoming an important part of the family. A jug that had cracked from great age was never simply thrown out onto the dirty street. It was very carefully crushed to be added to fresh clay when creating new vessels. This endless, wise cycle of renewal perfectly reflected the Scandinavian approach to the careful use of absolutely everything. The use of portable fireproof containers demonstrates the surprisingly high degree of mobility in the harsh northern way of life. The hearth fire was no longer rigidly tied exclusively to a single spot in the middle of a large longhouse. It could freely accompany people to wherever it was most needed at any given moment. This provided immense freedom of action in the daily organization of the complex domestic labor of all community members. Ordinary clay became the ideal mediator between the destructive power of wild flames and the human need for warmth. The Vikings' clear, engineering-minded thinking transformed simple earth into the most reliable tool for controlling the elements. The charcoal vessel became a true symbol of tamed fire, serving the will of its creator with absolute obedience. Ancient people were able to tame the most dangerous element and make it work safely for the good of the community. Their amazing ingenuity still amazes modern researchers of the history of the far north.
We can't lose any to the frost tonight.
The harsh, frosty climate demanded an incredibly skillful and thoughtful approach to zoning the vast interior space of the dwelling. Traditional Scandinavian longhouses were often several dozen meters long and had very high wooden roofs. The spacious central hall of the longhouse was divided into small, isolated compartments using thick hanging curtains. Heavy panels made of coarse sheep's wool created the most effective barriers against the flow of cold air. They reliably trapped thermal energy within the sleeping alcoves and completely prevented it from dispersing throughout the entire building. The thick fabric screens could be easily moved aside during the day and closed very tightly before nightfall. This unique mobile wall system allowed the interior space of the house to be transformed in a matter of minutes. During the day, it was a huge, bright hall for the entire extended family to work together and eat meals. At night, the dwelling transformed into a complex system of insulated warm rooms for everyone to sleep comfortably. This truly ingenious solution completely solved the problem of heating a vast area without wasting precious firewood. In addition to warm wool, Northerners made extensive use of thick linen fabric for the inner layers of sleeping quarters insulation. High-quality linen is very pleasant to the touch and effectively absorbs any excess moisture from the human body. This reliably prevented the formation of unpleasant condensation inside the enclosed sleeping area caused by constant human breath. The combination of coarse outer wool and soft inner linen created a simply ideal two-layer system for retaining heat. People would wrap themselves up in these natural fabrics, creating their own personal safe cocoon. This cozy fabric cocoon became virtually impervious to the severe nighttime frosts outside. Home textiles successfully replaced modern heaters, relying solely on the retention of the human body's natural heat. The correct combination of plant and animal fibers vividly demonstrated the profound knowledge of ancient craftsmen. Sleeping in such a well-equipped alcove was incredibly comfortable even during the harshest and longest January nights. Every family always had its own supply of high-quality fabrics for a successful and safe winter. During the day, when the central hearth was burning at full strength, all the fabric partitions were pushed wide open. This allowed the intense heat radiating from the fire to spread freely throughout the room and dry out the damp woolen blankets. The circulation of dry, hot air quickly eliminated dampness and reliably prevented the growth of dangerous mold on natural fabrics. Regular airing of the fabric screens was the key to maintaining the respiratory health of absolutely everyone in the house. In the evening, the mobile partition system closed again, transforming the large hall into a labyrinth of cozy, warm rooms. The dense textile partitions also performed the vital function of retaining heat radiation from the heated stone radiators. Very often, red-hot boulders, brought directly from the large central fire, were placed under the wooden bench. In such cases, the edges of the wooden platform were very tightly draped with thick fabric all the way down to the earthen floor. This completely prevented hot air from dissipating uselessly in all directions across the cold lower part of the house. The fabric directed the life-giving heat exclusively upward, directly onto the planks of the sleeping platform. The fabric acted as a kind of reliable valve, concentrating thermal energy exactly where it was most needed by the people. Without these thick fabric skirts, the overall efficiency of such underground heating would have decreased several-fold. Precious heat would simply have seeped into the cold ground or vanished without a trace in the vast empty hall. Experienced weavers specifically created long lengths of fabric of the required size precisely for equipping such warm sleeping quarters. Every minute detail of the interior was strictly subject to the rigid laws of ancient energy conservation. The craftsmanship of working with home textiles reached the highest level of technological engineering in the frosty north. Fabrics were very often impregnated with special secret natural compounds that excellently repelled moisture and prevented rapid ignition. The safety of natural materials was critically important given their close proximity to open fires and portable hot braziers. Thick wool would smolder slowly rather than burst into flames from a spark accidentally flying from the fire. This always gave people precious time to prevent a large and terrible fire in a wooden house. This invaluable knowledge regularly saved entire settlements from complete destruction by fire during the harsh winter months. Every technical solution in the Vikings' way of life was dictated solely by the harsh necessity of survival in the ice. Their ingenious heating methods clearly demonstrate how to achieve maximum comfort with minimal expenditure of precious energy. A careful and thoughtful understanding of the physics of materials allowed them to successfully conquer the harshest regions of the boundless North. Their approach perfectly combined rugged beauty, ingenious simplicity, and absolute practical functionality. Fabric, ash, and hot stones became a direct extension of human will in the harsh struggle against the merciless winter elements. The Vikings never tried to defeat nature. They learned to skillfully use its basic laws to their advantage. Their hidden and invisible heat retention technologies still command sincere, deep respect from modern, experienced engineers. The wisdom of ancient builders and talented weavers helped the northern peoples not only survive, but also create a great culture. This unique historical legacy lives on in modern, eco-friendly approaches to housing design. The art of heat conservation became the foundation of survival for entire generations of northern seafarers and talented artisans. Their engineering solutions are striking in their incredible simplicity, reliability, and deep understanding of complex natural processes. Every detail of their harsh daily life was geared toward conserving heat and protecting against the merciless cold. Ordinary river stones, wood ash, and bog turf were transformed into perfect tools for battling the elements. Suggest topics for future videos you'd like to see on our channel in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.